We tend to assume the smartest students get the best grades, and that the smartest students are the most intelligent. But in reality, academic success often has surprisingly little to do with intelligence. This video will prove to you that grades are in no way an accurate measure of cognitive ability. First, we need to know what exams are measuring and rewarding, and for that, we look at the structure of exams and curriculums. Exams are marked with a specific marking scheme that tells the marker whether to mark correct or incorrect. Therefore, the curriculum is built to train students to answer these questions. Even for open-ended questions like those in English or history, you're told exactly how to structure your answer. Because of this, study is framed around repeating and memorizing question types. So someone could get an A in their exam and not understand the subject in the slightest. They memorize all these science facts or equations, but if you ask them why that is, or to prove them, they couldn't. So that means exams don't measure how much you understand a subject, but rather how much you have memorized the material. I don't know about you, but when I think of intelligence, I don't think how much you're willing to sit and memorize questions. I think of how good you are at critically thinking to derive your views on a matter, and your ability to problem solve an issue you haven't encountered before. Psychology studies show that the correlation of intelligence to grades is about 0.4 to 0.6, meaning only 16 to 36% of grade performance is attributed to intelligence. And I would argue it's lower because their measures of intelligence use mostly pattern recognition, logical inference, and processing speed, which are all definitely factors of intelligence, but they're specifically the ones closer to affecting study habits. So I would say they don't account for the other significant factors, which would pull the percentage down to an extent. I'm not suggesting intelligence has no influence on academic performance. Of course, if there were two individuals and I had to predict who had the higher grades based solely on IQ, I would pick the higher IQ individual. My claim is instead that the correlation between intelligence and academic success is not strong enough to make determinations on someone's intelligence based on how they score on school tests. Studies on the correlation between the Big Five personality traits and academic performance finds that high conscientiousness is also a large factor of grade percentage, which makes sense. People that are highly organised and working are more likely to have good and more frequent study habits, and their high responsibility likely means that they take orders better from authority. The study found conscientiousness accounted for around 28% of the variance in academic performance. That personality trait alone is placed higher in correlation of grades than the median value of the range given for intelligence's correlation. And this percentage would be increased at least slightly if we factored in the other aspects of personality. This suggests that personality can be just as big a factor of exam performance as intelligence is, which isn't really what we want from an exam. I should also mention there's shown to be little correlation between the Big Five traits and intelligence, in case you thought my conclusion was skewed because people with high conscientiousness were more likely to have high IQ. But that's not true. The highest percentage correlation between a Big Five trait and intelligence was openness to experience at only 9%. So when we look at personality's influence on grades next to intelligence's, it becomes clear that the smartest and the highest performing are not the same. School rewards a very specific set of traits and skill set, which arguably are not the best skills to reinforce. I believe that critical thinking and cognitive flexibility are very undervalued in society. The people in charge want people that don't think for themselves, that instead follow orders and take on the ideologies they're given, which is only reinforced by schools. I'm on a mission to change that, so if you want to engage the muscles that school fails to train, check out some of my other content. See you again. Which isn't really what we want from an An exam.